It's almost a fact of life these days that kids and adults alike enjoy video games. Some would argue that it's even unavoidable. But I'm here today to tell you why exactly you should avoid them, and to show you the effects that they have on the mind. In particular, I want to look at the example of one man, and how video games mentally unraveled him, leaving behind a broken, confused shell of a man. I'd like to introduce you to Brian David Gilbert, or as I and about 840,000 other people know him, BDG. You see, Brian is a YouTuber, and a moderately well-known one at that, which means he has the means and the ability to say a lot of things that probably wouldn't be said otherwise. I first found Brian for his music and short horror content, which is what most people know him for, but in my quest to consume all the content that I could find, I discovered his involvement in something new. But first, a little bit of background. One of my personal favorite videos of his was a 2-minute song simply titled, "This Video Got Me a Job." In it, he talks about how he applied for a position at a company called Polygon, which required a video cover letter, and this video is what he sent in. Some of his selling points were his useless English degree, skills in video editing, and in his own words, a countdown timer till I'm destitute. As you may imagine from the title, Brian got the position, but I wasn't aware of the full scope of what this would entail until later. You see, Polygon is at its core a video game journalist, and due to the nature of the internet, a big part of this involves making videos about games. That's where Brian came in. He was the creator of a series called Unraveled, the goal of which was to answer difficult questions in video game lore. And this is where we start to see the true power that video games have and the effect that they take on the mind. The first video that Brian made started by asking a simple question about the timeline of a game, but we quickly see the toll that researching it took on him. He becomes erratic and agitated, prone to yelling and breakdowns about how he saved it all with Monopoly. This was only the beginning. Over the course of 3 years, fans of the series saw Brian laugh, cry, scream, create cults and spin-offs, almost throw up, leave society to become a hermit on 3 separate occasions, and actually even answer a question or two. Through it all, though, the core message I took away was this: none of this would have happened if it weren't for video games. So today, we're going to take a look at a few of his biggest breaking points and see if we can't tell what brought him to that point. The first one comes from one of his later videos about the game series entitled Crash Bandicoot. And it's interesting because it shows what happens when the money and power get to your head. The original Crash Bandicoot was a crystallization of pure, unfiltered late 90s energy that burned itself into the memories of those lucky enough to grow up with these games. I did not grow up with these games. I was born too late to Crash. I have been robbed of the nostalgia so many lucky gamers feel, and sadly, that nostalgia is impossible for me to attain now. Just kidding, I have sponsor money. Nothing is out of my reach. My hypothesis is that if I purchase all of the required food, decor, and technology available in a 1996 to 1998 American household, I can essentially create a pocket dimension, which will allow me to speedrun the late 90s. Close quote. This instance is particularly worrying because it shows Brian's late-stage delusion setting in. See, when you spend a large amount of time in a fictional world, it begins to blur with reality, and this is a prime example. But this is only the tip of the iceberg, and if we are to truly understand the degradation of Brian's mental state, we have to dive deeper. Our next example is one of a broken man, that of a being who cannot comprehend what he's been faced with, and is forced into a defensive position to code. Quote again. But how can we reconcile the two truths of Kirby, that he is both nothing and everything? How can this sentient garbage bag accomplish so much? Let me tell you. I don't know. I literally have no clue how this dumb idiot orb can have so much power. I have worked my whole life researching and gaining knowledge, and this useless sphere sleeps all day and has powers that God sphere, and that's impossible. That should be impossible. There has to be an answer here, and I don't see it, and that's not fair. If knowledge is power, then power should be knowledge, and Kirby is everything, and we should know everything, and yet we know nothing. I can't think in here. This example is particularly worrying, in that the culmination of this lengthy speech is Brian taking a hiatus to the woods to go away for a while and find Kirby. Our last example is the quintessential case brought against video games, and one that has persisted for a long time, that of anger, or more specifically, violent tendencies. This is simultaneously one of the longest and most glaring cases against video games to date, and Brian's example deals with one of the most well-beloved characters, Sonic the Hedgehog. In this video, Brian attempts to create the perfect Sonic game based off of the so-called Sonic Bible, a list of tenets and story points written by the original creators when they developed the character. His dissent is as follows. But I haven't used all 30 of these tenets. See, there are 4 of them that, to be perfectly honest, shouldn't be possible, and beyond that, are impossible to put into a game. I've hit a bit of a roadblock. Number 7 shows Sonic's dead father winking at him through a picture on the wall, which proves the existence of an afterlife in the Sonic universe. Number 15, Sonic is able to hibernate below delta brainwaves, and those are the slowest possible brainwaves, about 0.5 hertz. To go below those, Sonic would have probably died, and yet he's resurrected and lives again. Number 20, Sonic is able to run at the speed of light, and if the rules of relativity are to be believed, that means he would have to have infinite energy, and his mass would have to expand infinitely, and that would destroy the world. And yet, he's able to do this without harming himself or those around him. Number 30 is actually within the Bible itself. It states, but like most peaceful times in the 21st century, it didn't last long. This Bible was written in 1991, 9 years before the 21st century, and yet it prophesied our challenging political landscape. These 4 pieces of information aren't purely canonical information. They are divine miracles, and so of course, I could not put them into a game. They could only fit in a religion. So I went on WikiHow, the foremost explainer of how to do things, and I knew hidden somewhere in their beautiful imagery would be the way that I could spread the word of Sonic to the masses. And before you get upset with me saying, Brian, aren't you just starting a cult? That question was already answered by a user named CuteGirlCore. Technically speaking, religions and cults are the same thing. So I have formed my religion around Sonic the Hedgehog, and guess what? I have a confession. I've never played a Sonic game. Never in my life. But it's okay that I haven't played a Sonic game, because that means I haven't been tainted. I have never beheld the false Sonic. Only someone blind to the modern blasphemies of the Sonic franchise could see as clearly as I. Because if a hedgehog could commune with the dead, be resurrected, run with infinite energy, and have his gospel prophesy the future, then either Sonic is a god, or could kill God. And I do not care if there is a difference. Plainly see, this is problematic. Brian has spent so much time obsessing about video games, about Sonic, that it has consumed him. Like a parasite eating away his brain, his quest to find the truth about something that ultimately doesn't matter has reached its peak. This is the culmination, the reason we cannot let this poison corrupt our minds. This is the final piece, the straw that breaks the camel's back. We have to keep this pollution out of our minds, out of our lives, and out of our society as a whole, or we will suffer the same consequences that Brian did. Because if we do not, the world will crumble around us, and we will become the very thing we are most afraid of. We will become what he has become, and I can't do that. I can't let myself get to that place that Brian was. Not again. I don't know who I am anymore, but I know that I cannot go back to that place. Never again. Never again. And that is why I believe we should limit our intake of video games and other equally dangerous content. Thank you!